Here at Game Changing Dads, we know how tough it can be to stay motivated to be a good husband and a good father. That's why each week we bring you honest, real discussions about how to lead, love, and live. If you're looking for ways to take charge of your leadership role at home, visit GameChangingDad.com to find helpful tips on how to stay focused on your number one priority as you maneuver through the demands of your career.
Welcome to Game Changing Dads. This is your host, Ray Matz, and today we are going to motivate and inspire husbands and fathers to lead, love, and live. I had the privilege to interview a good friend of mine, Bryan Simkins. He is a man's kind of man. He is a rocking father, husband, and a God-loving, people-serving machine. He is the lead children's pastor at Journey Church here in Fernandina Beach. And the cool thing about all of this, that I get to serve under his amazing and wonderful leadership. Bryan, welcome to Game Changing Dads.
Thank you, Ray Matz. You are uniquely wired and wonderfully made.
I appreciate that, and right back at you. Well, let's start out this way. Can you give us a quick snapshot of who Bryan Simkins is over your 50 plus years, correct?
Yeah. Bryan was born in Pennsylvania and traveled around the country with my parents at an early age. Ended up here in Fernandina Beach, Florida, where we graduated. Picked up surfing, went out to the California coast for a year, come home, got hired by a company called Amelia Island Plantation. It's a private resort here on the island. Spent 32 years there in purchasing, shipping and receiving, and saved at 32 radically. Got involved in studying the Bible and kids ministry, and that led me over here to the Journey Church. 2 days from now will be my 3rd-year anniversary, and probably one of those greatest moments of being there was meeting you.
Awesome, brother. I totally appreciate that. Well, let's backtrack on that. That was pretty awesome. So at 32 years old, what did that path look for you? Being saved, being born again. Was it an invitation? Was it friends, family, or was it just kind of a crazy incident and like, whoa, time to wake up?
Yeah. Alcoholic family, a lot of bad choices. After 16 years of headed down that path, we have twin girls who are now 21. They were being born, and it was time. It was a wake-up call. And yeah.
Okay. Now from, 32 years old, did you just start attending church? Did your wife inspire you to get more involved in church? Or was it, or did you just wake up and say, hey, I'm going to be a children's pastor and just rock the planet?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, it didn't happen like that. There was a lot of struggle, a lot of battles to fight and habits to break. Kim actually was saved a year before I was, and there's an old country song that says, "You ain't much fun since I quit drinking," and that was it. She would go to church and come home using these fancy church words, and she kept talking about this guy that I need to hear sing, and the old jealousy was raising up, and so that's what got me to church. And then once I was there, the Holy Spirit just messed me up. So through a process of getting rid of the old life and letting Christ become more in me, I started taking on more responsibilities, and opportunities presented themselves, and in obedience I kept stepping forward and gaining confidence, and that's the path that led me to where I am today.
Awesome. Great answer. So it took you a year. So in that time, like you said, your wife was just bringing home some I don't want to say crazy language, but just, hey, you need to hear this guy, and just really just sowing some seeds for you, which is awesome. Was there ever a point in that year saying, man, no way, I want to run the other way?
Great question. I think everything that I had been through really left no desire to want to go back the other way, because those were dead ends and I've already been there. So just trusting, being obedient, and learning what that meant to keep going forward and just keep accepting those challenges. So I never did really look back. Now, it wasn't easy overcoming anger issues and cursing. And I know a lot of people who know me today may not believe that, but those were things like today, a lot of people overcome. That's what I had to do. So, yeah.
Well, and that's awesome. I mean, the whole cussing deal. So, I'm a hockey player. I've never cussed, and hockey players are the cleanest human beings on the planet. Definitely not. But coming from that background, was there a lot of criticism regarding old friends or family going, dude, who are you?
Oh, bro, absolutely. Yeah, those guys that I used to hang out with, when I finally quit drinking, they would still offer me beer. They would still want me to go out with them. And I got to the point where I knew I had to change who I was hanging around. And that was a major turning point. That was the comfort zone. Those were the guys I knew my whole life. And just in fear, not holy fear, but more just what's it going to look like going forward. We did that. And then God has just sent awesome people who have been mentors and just encouraged me to do this. So, yeah.
That is awesome. At a very young age, probably 18, 19 years old, my mom encouraged me to start my first business, which was awesome. And she said to me right off the bat, she's like, when you start going, against the tide or upstream, and you start doing stuff that the normal folks aren't doing, you're going to get criticized. You're going to make fun of you. And I'm like, my friends, no way. And you're absolutely right. So I was saved at 30 and same deal. I mean, my friends are like, excuse me, who are you? Which is cool. But hey, you stayed the path, which is awesome. Love that. And at that time, let's say 32 years old, brand new Christian, rededicated or just, reborn, where are your kids through this whole scenario? Are they kind of watching Dad? Were they asking a lot of questions?
Yeah, we believe in the generational curses that, kids imitate what they see, and overcoming those things. Our kids have never seen any of that. I can say that God kept his promise when we dedicated the girls, twins, they're 21 now. We dedicated them and asked God to raise them in a home that they wouldn't have to see what we went through. And, Taylor's going to be married here in a couple months. Sierra's well on her way to her career. Both of them are going for their nursing degrees. Only ever had 2 boyfriends. And my son is 16. And, their world, what they see here at the house, even though that may be traumatic and dramatic to them, which is nothing compared to what I went through, they've never seen it. So, yeah, God has definitely honored his promise through that.
And I mean, how important is that, especially as parents, to lay down that early foundation and just have that in place? Because, the Bible talks about, if they stray, that solid foundation at a young age is there. And, we all stray and we all mess up.
We do. And the thing is as you're laying that foundation, you don't see the results instantly. And, the girls are 21, like I said, and you see the fruit of that now. And even though they're still making their own choices, some, you cringe, you have to let them do that. But definitely I see the fruit of those devotions at the kitchen table and those getting up early and taking them to church and letting them experiment with different churches when they hit those teenage years. But definitely it paid off. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Great advice. Appreciate that. So let's go back, children's ministry. Like, I have kids. I love kids. Let's serve in children's ministry. Or like, hey, from Kim, maybe it's that little note. Hey, look, there's an opening. Or, I mean, I know my story. The pastor's talking up in North Carolina. And then after a while, I mean, he's looking at me, crazy stuff has happened in the church. I mean, God's speaking to me. I got my arms up going, me? No way. And all of a sudden I took that kind of leap of faith. And here I am 10 years later. How about your story regarding the kids pastor?
Yeah, I wish it was that glamorous. For us, it started off dropping the girls off in the nursery at church. And just like most small town churches, the worker wouldn't show up. So Dad would stay there and wait, and other parents would come in with their kids. Hey, would you keep so-and-so until, the worker shows up? And many times it ended up being us. And ironically, looking back now, that was part of the process. But as I started teaching the Bible to young adults, I never dreamt that I would be working with kids. Now, my wife is a school teacher, but I was always dreaming, that purchasing career and teaching 20 to 40-year-olds. But through the Awana program, which is something that happens, I don't know if it's worldwide, countrywide, but here in the South, that was something we did every Friday night for the kids. And so when God called us to this new church that we're at now, The Journey, there was no traditional Sunday school, and I didn't know where to get plugged in at. So I just started helping with kids ministry. And now I look back, I see the path clearly. But we were at The Journey for about 7 years when God finally opened those doors. And so for the last 3 years, that's what we've been doing.
Awesome. Awesome. Love it. So, it's funny you say, you were getting to Sunday school with the kids and all of a sudden someone didn't show up. And, I hear some similar stories out there, and I'm wondering, I wonder if they say, hey, do me a favor. Can you stay out of room so-and-so? Because Bryan and Kim, they would be awesome. And just let them see if they'll go in there and take care of some kids. Now, I don't know if you know my story. So I show up and I was supposed to be, observing in the back and, 15, 16 elementary kids. And I was scared. I coach kids with hockey, not the Bible. Totally new. I'm sitting in the back of the room and the kids are getting crazy and they're just jumping in, and had to go to the front door and start signing them in. I was like, well, I'm not sure what I'm doing. Let me just try this. And literally an hour and a half later, I'm teaching. So I don't know if they did that on purpose, but sometimes I think God may throw that little wrench in our gears just to mess us up. But, like you said, look where we are today, which is awesome. And I appreciate your leadership, what you do. And if you don't, and our story goes back 2.5 years ago, I walk into Journey Church. We moved down to Amelia, and I think I went to the locker room. Yeah. The men's Bible study. And I think I was just like, yo, anybody do children's stuff? And he's like, I just bumped into you. And I'm like, this guy's pretty cool, man. Let me follow him around. I think I followed, got some information. I think a week later, there it was.
They call that checking in hockey. You say you follow me around.
Trying to take you out. But man, what a blessing. And like I said, I just appreciate everything you've done over the last 2.5 years. So let's let's switch gears regarding what do you, so you're in deep. I mean, you see, we have primary, we have elementary. I mean, you see all the levels of kids. What do you see in society today that maybe dads are missing? It could be church related. It could be game-changing dads related. But what do you see out in society that, you can just say, man, I wish fathers would, or I wish fathers would, lead their kid, whatever it may be, because you see it firsthand.
Yeah, man, I'm going to tell you, there's a statistic out there that'll blow your mind. You may not even believe it until you research it yourself, but the average dad talks to his son or to his children 30 seconds a day. And I've actually tested this myself. My son is big into video games and I am not, and he will sit in his room, and it's easy for me to come home and get on the couch and just watch TV. And, I might go in and give him a hug, and that takes about 5 seconds. And at the end of the day, it's mind boggling. And that's probably something that happens worldwide. So I would challenge dads to be intentional. Now I purposely go in and I watch him play Minecraft. He loves it. The things that I grew up thinking would make the family better aren't necessarily the things that he thinks. So I would say, hey, dads, ask your kids what would be most valuable to them. And you might be surprised, and it might be easier than you think. For me, it's spending some time with him watching video games, and he helps me cut yards on Friday. We do that as a side job, and that's our kind of bonding time, just me and him. We always get lunch or something like that. But yeah, you got to spend time talking to him. Just ask him, what do you want to do with me? What's the best time you could have with your dad?
And what great advice is getting your kids involved. I mean, you run a business on the side, he comes and helped it. You grab lunch, communication is there. I see, especially society today, a lot of fathers are out there, and I don't want to say this the wrong way, but, are very money motivated, are very success driven. And, my thing that I share with, the guys that I coach and my mastermind guys, at 90 years old, does all that stuff really matter? Does the big house, the nice car, all the money and all the hours you spend away from your family, does that really matter? Or are you going to look back at 90 years old going, man, I'm glad I got my kids involved in selling water bottles, something we've been doing it for 2 years in front of the street. And I have this crazy conversation with my kids and we get the neighborhood kids and there's conversation about, hey, we're going to take this money, we're going to split it up this way. We're going to kind of, give to church and give to here. And if they don't have money, we give them free water. Well, why do we do that? We're just looking to serve people. But the small things, and I don't want to say a lot of guys miss that. I think a lot of families are just so driven, but what's the end story going to be? And I think that's incredible. So we don't think about that. I mean, we're in our 50s and we're like, oh man, it's going to be great. And we'll just success and run after money all of a sudden 90 years old. Like I said, that doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
Just doesn't matter, which is crazy, but it's all about family and kids, teaching them the right things. So let me see one other question. Let's talk about Kim. Kim's awesome. Kim's your wife. If y'all don't know that, she is incredible. School teacher, your relationships together, you work somewhere, she works somewhere different. And then, I know that Sundays and Wednesdays, y'all work together, but having that relationship and that working relationship, how important it is, for your children to see that.
Yeah, it's crucial because they're going to learn, they're going to model what they see with their future spouses with how I treat Kim. And, one thing years ago we started was date nights on Friday night. Every Friday night we are out away from the family. It's easier now that the kids are older and Joshua can stay here, but they know that is important. There is nothing that's going to interrupt that unless we want it, like we're mentoring another couple or we decide to go on a double date or something like that. But they know that we do our date nights once a week, every Friday night, whether we spend money or not. And then we try to do a weekend getaway every quarter, whether we run down here to St. Augustine and get a bed and breakfast. And then yearly, we try to plan some kind of vacation, more than a couple days away. So, yeah.
Awesome. So it's not like, hey, you're running one way, Kim's running the other. You guys are passing kids back and forth and you never see. I mean, it's intentional. You guys are making it happen. I love the date night. I love the weekends. Man, a lot of great nuggets here. I appreciate that. So we are going to switch gears and we are going to get into our snapshot edition. Let's see. Actually, not a snapshot. I'm sorry. It is called Rapid Fire. And if you are familiar with Rapid Fire, it's actually a hockey term, believe it or not. Actually, it can be several different meanings. But Rapid Fire is when you line up all the pucks on the blue line and a goalie wants to get warmed up, man, you just boom, 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 one after another. Kind of a fun deal to do if you're a forward and you got a good shot. So Rapid Fire. So I have 4 questions for you, Mr. Bryan. Are you ready?
Come on, Razor Ray Matz, bring it.
All right, here we go. Favorite book?
Case for Christ. I think that book, besides the Bible, Case for Christ was the most challenging book. It opened up history and everything that Jesus went through, made it real for me.
Okay. Do you know the author on that?
No.
Well, I'll tell that. No, that is fine. I will make sure I get it and I will put it in the show notes. So if somebody can click and get access to that book. No, that is absolutely perfect. All right. Rapid fire number 2, favorite husband moment.
Dude. And we've had 25 years together, Kim and I, but earlier this year, we went on a cruise to all over the Mediterranean or somewhere. We ended up in Cozumel. That cruise ship went around the world. We went to Cozumel. We rented a Jeep and we got away from the tourist area and it was just the best time. We didn't see anybody and we just spent the afternoon together. Favorite husband moment. Yeah.
Awesome. And did I see that on Facebook today by chance? Something about the Jeep.
Oh yeah, I updated my profile picture. Yeah, that's what it
Excellent. A
was.
good call. I'm like, oh, you got a new Jeep. And I'm like, wait a minute. Isn't that from his vacation a little while ago? I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
Excellent.
February.
Good call. Good call. So number 3 on the rapid fire, favorite dad moment. You got 3 kids. This may be a tricky one. Or you can do one per kid. You do whatever you like.
Yeah, what comes to mind first for me is with my son particularly. A couple of years ago, he was always interested in running, and he tried to run in our local. It's a shrimp boat weekend they call it here. And it's a big arts and crafts festival cookout. But there's a run for different age group kids, and the first year he tried it, he was smoking everybody at the halfway point, but he didn't ever learn to pace himself. And so by the end of the race, he was, like 10, 15 from dead last. So the next year I coached him, hey, you got to pace yourself. You got to drink water. You got to breathe. And he ended up winning. He's got the medal still. Now he's 15 years old and he's about 200 pounds now. I don't think he runs anywhere, but that was an awesome moment for me. I'm like, look at my kid.
Absolutely. Sweet. Love it. Love it. A last question on the rapid fire. Can you share one piece of awesome game-changing advice with our listeners today?
I can, and it is called the Orange Curriculum, particularly phases. And the idea behind phases is there's 936 weeks from a time a child is born until they graduate and leave home. And we know that if you know how much time you have left, you'll do more with the time you have. And I would suggest that you guys dive in, go to our website at the church and check out the phases. And when you know that your child has 168 weeks left and he's in his senior year at high school, you're going to be more intentional because shortly he'll be gone, and everything that you can teach him will have happened within that time period. So 936 weeks sounds like a long time, but you knock 52 weeks off every year and it runs out quick.
Absolutely. And from experience, I mean, you have a 15-year-old, I have a 10-year-old, and it's amazing on how fast everything goes. And you don't know how many times I've coached fathers, and, sometimes the reason I'm coaching them is they're like, they have kids that are in their 20s and 30s that have families established, kids and all. And they're like, I don't have a relationship with my kids. And I missed out when they were at a young age because I was working, looking for the corporate ladder, running after money. And all of a sudden, and they come to me and they say, what do I do? And great nuggets there with there's only a little bit of time, go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say 936 weeks until they're supposed to leave home. Now, that's at 18.
Yeah.
But we still have 20 and 30-year-olds living at home. But the concept is, take advantage of that phase of that child's life, because you'll only know them as a kindergartner once, as a first grader once, as a 10-year-old once. So even for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. But it's funny, I can look back and, I was blessed to see, all 3 births. I mean, I cried when Jewel gave birth to all my kids, which was just a God thing, man. How incredible is that? But, the skin knees, the falling off the bike, the first time on skates, man, for fathers, it's just huge. Don't miss that opportunity. If you're a dad out there and you're a brand new dad or thinking about being a dad or a father, man, be that step up guy, get involved in some kind of group where you have early on, like Bryan was saying, you have great role models and mentors, people that you can look for support, for love, for guidance, not the guys that are, running the worldly stuff and been there, done that for 30 years. So I totally get it, but looking forward from 30 years to where I am now, man, it's just what a blessing. And, we're also walking with God too, which is incredible.
Yeah. And real quick, Ray, I just want to give you a shout out, because the example that you set by being a guy, being a man, being in church and teaching, those boys, those kids, boys and girls, look up to that. They see what a man is supposed to do. And then when you're mentoring guys like Dustin and Dylan and bringing them to church, kudos to you, because kids need to see men leading.
I appreciate that. So in a typical church setting, who's ruling? Is it men or women? And you know the stats, and I know the stats, but who's out there serving the most, men or women?
Yeah, women.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. And to serve God and serve your church, dude, there's nothing like it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Men can do this.
And that's why I love the balance of our church. It's real close to 50-50 and growing. So
awesome. And that's so, so important. But it's almost like, it's not a cool thing anymore. But, in our church, it is a cool thing in other churches. For a guy to lead a elementary class, why not? There's no guideline saying, hey, you have to do this and you have to be a woman. So that's why I love Game Changing Dads. I love writing the book. I love doing the podcast. And I love interviewing guys like yourself, because you're out there. Talk is cheap, but you're out there making it happen, which I so appreciate, especially our church family. We absolutely love that.
Come on.
All right. We are going to end it. Anything else to say to our audience, Bryan?
God, don't drive parked cars. Get out there and do it.
Wow. Love it. Absolutely love it. Well, hey, we appreciate you being here and taking your time out tonight. And everybody else there for Game Changing Dads, we will see you next Tuesday morning. Y'all have a great week. God bless.